and Ma'at. That means I'm offering you truth. I hope that this is stabilized and going live. Welcome. If it's your first time here, I'm Neferka. I am the mother of Tehuti Ma'at, which is a revolutionary instrument that is here for the resurrection, the upliftment, and the empowerment of people of African ascent worldwide. We function as a grassroots cooperative, and we have various community service initiatives, our Organic Food for the People program, our Intuit Healing Ciphers, our Sankofa youth workshops, and primarily we function for high-level souls. We attract high-level souls. This is a movement to raise warriors, right? Real revolutionaries who are here to build and develop the institutions that we need for our liberation. So without further ado, today is actually an energy reading. So I usually do my energy readings in SpiRitual. So I'm glad to be back. It's been, I think, 2 moons since I did a reading. And I hope for all those of you who are regulars here, welcome back. I hope you got to check out the sexual alchemy webinar series that we did. So even though I didn't do an energy reading last moon cycle, there was so much content put out with that webinar series that I really hope and trust that whoever needed to align with it in that moment was able to. If you have a chance to tap into it now, please do, because it is going to be archived for our Tehuti Ma'at militia members. So if you're interested in joining our membership program, where you get access to our exclusive gatherings and the trainings and all of the different programs that we have, I'll do a separate video specifically on that, but you go to tehutimaat.org/join for more information about that. But this energy reading is all about letting go so that we can actually step into our full potential. So I'm gonna go ahead and share the reading. As I said, I usually do this in SpiRitual. This time it was actually water ritual. I pulled this reading at the beach. So I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can share my screen. I also want you to bear with me because this is my first time live streaming like this. So this is my Merkut reading. This is a pyramid reading. If you're interested in booking a reading with me, you can visit coinsandcaris.com, which is one of our cooperative business ventures for Tehuti Ma'at. It's our spiritual marketplace where we offer spiritual goods and services. So my readings are on there. If you want an oracle reading, the pyramid reading is an option. The pyramid reading is a 10-card spread, and it works. I'm going to work my way from the top to the bottom. I just wanted to show you before I get started. The first card in the reading is the fire principle. This is the guiding principle for the entire reading. It's like the energy is like flowing down the pyramid. The second layer here, these 2 cards are the mental realm. This is the air. So this is the energy that's reading the mental space, the mind. And then once the energy comes down into the mental realm, it then comes into the Ka, our emotional body. And this realm is water, and this is how we sense the energy emotionally. And then finally is the earth energy, right? This is how it's going to be experienced in the physical realm. So that being said, I am going to station this back up here again. And I'm going to go ahead and give you my interpretation of the reading. I'm actually going to go ahead and shift this here. Now, the way that I typically do my reading, I am going to be bringing forward my workshop, The Art of Divination. If you are a mystic, a healer, or a reader, I highly recommend that you join. This is really about creating the space for the collective responsibility that we need as readers, because there's really an abuse of this craft, this gift, and we'll get all into that. So subscribe if you're not subscribed, so that way you can know about everything that's going on and get more information about the art of divination. But I do want to give the disclaimer, like when I do my readings, they are energy readings, right? A lot of people oriented into readings from a different lens. Like it's not telling you what to do. It's not telling you because the energy is capturing a moment in eternity, right? This is a reading for this cycle that we're in right now. So whenever you come to it, right? If you're here in real time, it's for this moon cycle, but it's a faded connection. So whenever this message reaches you, it's because this energy and there's something here for you that you are unfolding and experiencing. The benefit of it is the awareness. So that being said, I like to exercise your intuition. That's the biggest thing. When you are opening yourself up for a reading or when you are reading for someone, it's a very intimate process and it's one that should be taken with great care. The other thing is really the gift and the most important thing is you, right? You are the one who can interpret how this energy is going to be experienced for yourself. So take note of whatever comes up to you for you intuitively, whether it's a thought, a person, a thing, an experience, a sensation in your body. Take note of whatever it is as it comes up for you and write it down. If you need to come back to it, if you're catching the replay or the raw play, as I like to say, then come pause, write in your journal, your notebook, right? So as I said, well, first of all, I feel like I want to clear the energy. And I want to make sure we just take a nice deep breath and just come fully present for the message that's coming true. All right. Inhale. I want you to drop your jaw and just release. Those audible releasing breaths, when you take it in through the nostrils and you release it through the mouth, really clears out the energy. So give yourself that. Give one more. And just come into this moment. This reading is really about that. All right, because the way that this energy is going to materialize in the physical for this cycle is coming into the present moment of eternity, because there's going to be some shedding and there's also the potential for return. It's really a cyclical cycle that we're in. Every cycle isn't the same. Sometimes they're like heavy closing cycles. This one is very much about the ending and the beginning, like the real looping of how energy moves. Now, when I share with you the cards and the energies, remember that these are all natural forces and energies that are indwelling within us. We can embody them, we can align with them. The goal and the gift of being aware of the energy and conscious of it through a reading is that you can consciously align with it, right? You can gauge it for yourself and you can be present with it. The first card in the reading, remember, as I said, pause if you need to. Hopefully you can see that clearly. But this card is Sokar. It's number 1 in the family of the Duat. The family of the Duat is the house of the underworld or the Amenta, right? The cosmos, right? Coming into the darkness, right? But really the Duat is the underworld. Now, it's the first card in the series, so it represents 1. 1 is the initiation, right? It's the beginning of the cycle. So when we talk about the initiation into the Duat, the duat is the space that we go when we transition, right? When something ends, when something dies, there is a process, and the first step of that process is what Sokar represents. So you can see what comes up for you intuitively. Obviously, it's that body there, because this literally represents the physical dead, like the death itself, and the ritual process, right? Remember our ancestors, right? Our ancient tradition, death was very sacred because life was sacred, right? When we think about the Ankh and ancestrally carrying the Ankh, representing carrying life, eternal life, it was a representation of our connection and commitment to proliferating life. And in order to be connected to life, you have to equally be connected to death, because there is no life without death. So the recognition of this is the initial cycle, the start of a death. Interestingly enough, you have the 2 figures at the top there, which represent the sparrow form, the bird form of Ast and Nebetet, the 2 sisters, the twins. And that represents the dark and the light feminine energy, right? They are the initiators of the portal of death. They are the ones who are present during the ritual of Asar's body, the resurrection ritual, if you're not familiar with that. These principles are the ones that come to bring the pieces of the body back together when Asar is killed. I'll go into that because Asar is actually one of the cards in the deck. But for now, just consider death itself, right? And the ritualizing, the ceremonial aspect of the embalming process, right? Of the decorum of, think about a burial, right? The casket, the whole funerary rites of passage. That is what Sokar represents. That's the guiding principle of this cycle. So there is something that is dying, something that is closing out. You are aware of it, and you need to align with Sokar by honoring that death in whatever way you feel to do that, right? Whatever came up for you and comes up for you intuitively. Sokar is an important principle because it is representing darkness, right? It's literally inertia, right? It's the time of testing, right? Because at the beginning of that cycle, the death, you're going into the darkness. So it's literally when you put the seed into the soil, into the ground. The first thing that happens is the seed must decay and die in order for it to sprout. That is the essence of the energy of this cycle. So honor that sowing process, right? Take the power within the death and recognize you chose this closing. Recognize the completion of whatever it is that you're being called to let go of, that you don't want to, that you might want to hold on to, whatever dance you're doing with the energy of what's closing out right now, and honor it. Have a ritual for it. Sow the seed. Let it die and recognize what it's going to birth, what is going to sprout from that death, right? But the inertia is a time of testing. It's going into the dark, right? The letting go process. So that brings us into the second tier, which, as I said, is the mental realm. So on the mental level, in the mind, the air, the energy that is present, that is still influencing, that's kind of behind us, but still influencing our current thought patterns, is Shu Tefnut. This is a number 2, which is interesting because obviously 2 is the second number in a cycle. It is the mirroring, is the twin number, right? It's when the 1 multiplies into the 2, and it's complementary energy. That's literally what this card represents. So you can take note of whatever comes up for you intuitively, as I said. This is in the family of Ra, the solar family. So Shu and Tefnut, first and foremost, I want you to know that this is what the Romans interpreted as Uranus or Uranus, right? That planetary sphere of energy, and Neptune, right? So Tefnut is Neptune, right? The watery, expansiveness of Neptune that energetically represents and influences in our solar system, right? Remember, it's the family of Ra, so it's in the solar family. And Uranus, or Shu, represents the wind, the air, right? Think about Shu. Uranus is known for the high level winds, right? And what does wind do? It brings change, it's shock, it's surprise, right? That's what the energy of Shu is. These are both atmospheric energies. So Tefnut represents the atmosphere in the context of moisture, and Shu represents the atmosphere in the context of dryness, right? The air. So together they are complementary forces. So this represents a complementary balancing of the mind. Remember, the 2 hemispheres of the brains are also twin, right? You have the masculine and the feminine, the right side representing the masculine and the left side representing the feminine. The right side representing what we shoot out, right? The active impulse, and the feminine representing the receptive energy, right? What we pull in, what we receive and process from pulling it in. So this represents having a balancing mentally of those 2, and it immediately goes into what's in front of us mentally. So I want to make this connection here. So this card is the number 4. It's in the family of Ta, which is the family of the earth. The card is Nekbet. Nekbet is symbolized as the vulture. That's what this principle is symbolized by. Now, I know the woman in the figure in the car, don't get distracted. She don't have that much melanin, right? But this is a principle of the vulture. And what I want to say about the vulture is there's a lot of different aspects. The first thing that comes to spirit is that the vulture is a scavenger, right? This is about not leaving anything behind, right? Why do we need scavengers? They clean up the desert, right? They make sure that, when the animal dies and all the others have feasted, they come in and clean out the rest, right? That's their purpose. That's actually what they are for. They are scavengers. Another thing about Nekbet as a principle is that the vulture is also used to symbolize another natural force known as Mut, which is the selfless mother. Because the vulture, if it cannot feed its young, it will literally prick itself and feed its young its own blood to sustain it, right? So it represents that selfless love. Now, in the context of this card, because it's Nekbet, it's not Mut, even though they both have the symbolism of the vulture. This is about the gestation of plans because it's still speaking of that mothering energy, but this is specifically about success, right? Successfully gestating plans through applying spiritual principles and having clear-sightedness, because the vulture is also known for having the clear vision, right? When you think about how they find what's left, right, in order to hover over it. But I want you to also think mentally of going into scavenging your mind. That's the energy that we are best to align with moving into this cycle, is going into the recesses of your mind. What's left? What are some aspects or thought patterns or things that you have to release in order to have this shedding and this death process that you're honoring in what's closing out in your life right now? Are there thought patterns that are still attached to certain things, or that are still holding you back from your pure potential, that the seed that you're sowing represents, right? So that's what I want you to think about, and whatever came up for you intuitively, right? So now we're moving into the emotional body. The emotional layer of the reading is represented by water, as I said. And the first card is this one here. So remember, as I said, pause if you need to, so you could take note of what comes up for you intuitively. This is the family of Neph. Neph is the wind, and this is the number 3. Now, I didn't mention that when we did Sokar, the number 4 represents stability. Think about the 4 cardinal directions, right? East, west, north, south. Think about the 4 cornerstones when building and architecture, they create stability. Think about the 4 main elements: fire, earth, water, air. They provide direction, stability. So it's a stabilizing energy. So we're stabilizing ourselves by getting the clear-sightedness that we can have when we really scavenge through, right? And eat the remains, like whatever's left, right? Think about the symbolism there of whatever it is that we're releasing, so that we're clear in our minds and our vision is clear moving forward. Now, this card is number 3. The 3 is before the 4. So as we went from the 2, the twin energy, when the 2 complementary energies come together, they create life. They create, so they become 3, which is the Trinity, right? Representing like the Holy Family, right? The representation of mother, father, principle, creating child. So the 3 is a creative force, right? In nature, that is the highest form of like how we see creativity expressed, is through the family unit. So when you're looking at this card, it's Ma'ert. Ma'ert is symbolized by the cow, as you can see. I want you to take note of whatever comes up for you intuitively. Now, the cow symbolism is so sacred across traditions and cultures. Part of that is because of the agricultural component of the cow, right? Even the cow's waste is fertility. So the cow represents fertility. It represents abundance. When a cow is slaughtered for a ceremony, it is an abundance of food, of meat, of sustenance for the people. The cow is also a beast of burden, right? In terms of how you would consider it in animal husbandry, the cow can move and push a lot of weight. So it's used in agriculture sometimes to push heavy plows. So there's a lot of different ways that the earth or the cow energy, the symbolism represents this, pulling in or attracting really everything you need to feel in essence, because this is in the emotional realm. Now, these are feelings that could be influencing us from the past cycle, right? Because remember, we're in a continuum. So nothing's just starting new. We're picking up where we just left off. So whenever there's an ending, there's also a beginning. And that's really what this reading represents. That closing out, that death is for rebirth. That sowing that seed and it dying is for it to sprout, right? So as we go into this energy of mid-earth, emotionally, this is speaking about unlimited possibilities. It's about us seeding plans and all the possibilities being in potential, but not yet realized, right? So you have to go through the process, right? Farming, cultivating the land is a process. If you're using the cow to plow the land, that's a process before you can even sow the seed. The cow, as it's plowing, it's also defecating, right? So the waste, right, the manure from the cow is fertilizing the soil, and you get to sow the seed in that space, right? So there's a cultivating, there's a process that it takes for sowing those seeds, for all the possibilities to be in potential, the nurturing, right? But anything can happen. And you have to remain steady and present within the process when you are farming, right? Speaking as a farmer now, I'm getting my farmer bag, right? I got my cows over here influencing me too. I'm so thankful to have this personal connection with the spirit of the cows. So essentially, what I want you to think about is emotionally, right? Remember, this is the emotional realm. Think about what it is going to take for that seed to sprout. And allow that to be your commitment to the process of what it is that you're shedding, that you're releasing, that's dying in your life right now. All right, so that you don't hold on to it, because remember, you also got to be present to nurture the process. If there's parts of your energy and your emotions that are holding on to other things that are outworn and keeping you from nurturing, right, and protecting the seeds that you've sown, right, watering those seeds, keeping pests and creatures away and birds and crows away, so that you can actually allow it to develop in order to produce fruit, right? So that you can harvest from that seed, right? So that potential becomes realized. Now that moves us into this card. This card is the fifth card in the reading. The fifth card is significant because it's the centerpiece of the reading. It's the connection between our earthly and spiritual lives. So this card is Atum. And it's also in the family of Ra, the family of the sun, which is number 1 though, right? So the first card that we had in the family of Ra was Shu and Tefnut, but it was number 2. So now we're dealing with number 1, the initiation again. Initiation into the creative force, because Atum is the first impulse of creation. So it would be that first root that comes out of the seed when it's sprouting, right? It's the first thing that's coming into the chaos. As you can see, Atum is represented as Kun, as pure blackness, as carbon. He's wearing the double crown of the upper and lower land, representing the higher and the lower self. He has the serpent of chaos behind him, so he can exist within the chaos of pure potential and give that first output of self-projection, right? The first impulse of creation is to project out of the self, right? Project the self, this internal experience outward, which is what any creative process is. So remember to take note of whatever comes up for you intuitively, because this is connecting our earthly and our spiritual lives. I want you to recognize that this is the easiest way to tap into the energy, because it's regardless of if you're more in the spiritual realm or if you're more of a grounded person, right? This is still the impulse of the energy, right? This impulsive creative force is still the essence of how you can unify both and connect your spirit and your body, right? So that could be in so many different ways. Whatever impulse of creation that you have, like, follow through with it, just go with it. That's how you can embrace this energy instead of, like, thinking it through or doubting yourself or doing the whole dance there. Just do the impulse of creation. It's a great time to do like automatic writing or any type of creative expression. Honestly, it could be poetry, it could be art, visual art, whatever it is. Create. Now, the next card, which is the last card in this emotional body, is Asar. It's in the family of Ra, the family of the sun, and the card is number 8, right? 8 is the number of infinity, right? No end, the eternal number, right? And that's what Asar represents, because Asar is the lord of the underworld. So you can take note of whatever comes up for you intuitively. Remember to pause if you're watching the Ra play. Asar is seen holding the Hek and Nekeka here, right? What you see him holding here, these are farming tools. And one is used, so they're used in animal husbandry. So farming, and the farmer was literally the highest regard, like the most respectable and honorable practice, right? Because the whole tradition is based on agriculture in Kemet, right? This whole Kemetic science is based on agriculture and the connection and cultivation of nature, the alignment with nature. So farmers and the Nesubiti, right? The pharaoh, the supreme leader, is seen as a farmer, right? Cultivating the people, cultivating the empire. So one of the tools is used, right? It's the Hek and Nekeka. So one is used to pull in and the other is used to push out. So it goes back to that balance of the positive and the negative charge, right? The light and the dark, the masculine and the feminine. But I like to think about it sometimes like just as mother, father. You could just think about it in whatever expressions of duality that need to express themselves in complementary ways, right? Because that's how we look at it from a holistic African-centered perspective. It's about the unification of the energies, not the separation of the energies. So how do these energies dance together? How are they two expressions of the same thing, two sides of the same coin? And Asar is shown here in his green form. Sometimes Asar is shown black, but here he's shown green. This is representing Asar after he has resurrected. He is seen as the great green because he has sprouted out of the darkness of the soil. When Asar is killed, he's represented in the darkness, in the black. When Asar resurrects, he's representing Geb, right? The earth, the masculine expression of the earth, which is vitality and vegetation that erects itself out of the earth, like the grass, like the trees, right? So in this reading, this position is the energy emotionally that we're moving towards in this cycle. And I see it as rising up with emotional authority. It's also, everything I was saying before about death for resurrection, recognizing that we're letting go of attachments and there may be mystical revelation in that process, right? There is mystical revelation in that process. The thing is, are you attuned? Are you tuning in and receiving whatever revelations are coming from this process? Because that's what Asar really represents. Asar, when he resurrects, he doesn't come back to the conscious realm. He stays in the underworld, which is the subconscious realm. So there's subconscious messages that come through when this energy is present. And this is emotionally. So remember, we're in the emotional realm and we're moving into the body. Remember that emotions do get trapped in the body. So that's a big thing that I'm just feeling intuitively to express, because it's important to recognize that there's a shedding as well in the physical body of emotions that have trapped and maybe even calcified in the body in some way, whether that's through disease, through pain, some type of any type of like physical ailment. you want to be aware of that, right? But as we're moving into the physical realm, this is really still beautiful energy here. The first card is Heru. And Heru is Asar's son, right? So when Asar resurrects and has the immaculate conception, right? Or that virgin birth and impregnates his wife As, she gives birth to their son Heru, right? So you can see Heru here shown as a warrior. Heru is literally where we get the word hero. Heru is the victor, the one that is victorious. So this card literally represents victory. He's seen with the falcon mask, representing the keen sight, right? The precision of the falcon, the ability to look directly into the sun, right? Remember, this is in the family of Ra, the family of the sun. Heru is also a divine expression. That's why this card is the number 7. In the physical realm, the number 7 is very significant of how the divine expresses itself in the physical realm. So there's 7 cardinal directions, right? Well, excuse me, there's 7 directions. There are 4 cardinal directions, and then we have above, below, and within. So those are 7 directions. We have 7 main colors in the light spectrum, right? We have 7 main harmonic tones in sound, right? So these are the ways we sense divinity, is through sound, vibration, right? And how vibration expresses itself visually is through light, through color, right? So that's the significance of the number 7. And then this card, yeah, it just represents victory, right? You got the eye of Heru, right? The solar eye. And it represents being triumphant over adversity, right? Overcoming, winning the battle. This could be something, because it's physical, it could be like coming out or like coming into, or what's influencing us is maybe like whatever victories we just moved through, right? Maybe you might have to sit back and look like, yeah, I won. I won. And the sacrifice is what I've killed is the victory, right? What is dying is the victory, allowing it to go, right? It's all about perception, our perspective. And sometimes we need to be reminded to see and count our victories, count our blessings, count our accomplishments. The next card is Kamatef. Again, the number 8, the number of eternity, which is very just perfect for this card in particular. It's in the family of Ah, the family of the moon. So it's perfect for this card because literally the Kimatef is a symbol that's shown as a serpent that's swallowing its own tail. Usually it's shown in that like figure 8 form. So you can see it just looks like a paradoxical image here. I want you to just, whatever comes up for you intuitively. Remember, serpents in Kemetic science are not always depicted as so-called negative energies. Honestly, none of the energies are really like negative or positive per se, if you look at them neutrally, because they all serve a purpose. However, there are some energies that represent more density, evil, darkness. But Kemetef is more neutral in that this serpent is just representing the intuitive aspect, right? The movement of the serpent and what that symbolizes energetically. And this is really about expanding beyond the now. When the serpent swallows its own tail, it's really speaking to that same theme that we're talking about all the way from the top of the reading, which is the end is the beginning, right? Like swallowing itself. So I want you to think about this as immortality, right? Like in a physical sense, it's really representing the fact that like through this death, whatever you're facing, whatever you're releasing, like there is no end. Or it's a recognition that whatever is closed out is for a purpose. So it could even be, people will experience this differently. It depends on where you are in your journey and how you're expressed, like what your unique disposition is energetically. For some people, it will literally be the return of something that you thought was complete, right? So it could be that. It could also literally just be something fulfilling its time that's no longer needed and it just closing out, right? And then we have the family of Pet, the family of the heavens, and we have the card Ra itself. the sun, the solar principle. So you have both eyes here present, right? You have the cobra symbolized here. Whatever comes up for you intuitively, take note of. In that spiral at the bottom there of the serpent's tail, you see all these ankhs, right? So it is a representation of life, but it's represented through the cobra representing the wajet energy, which many people know as the kundalini. We talked about this a lot in sexual alchemy, because this is the coiled energy that comes up and resurrects itself back for enlightenment, for awakening. And you can see that as there's like a projection of light coming from the two stars, one dark and one light in the center there. This is really deep, layered symbolism. I'm not getting into the depths of it because this is a public reading, but these are the things we go deep into for the people who are members of the militia. So the symbol at the top here, the Heru Behutet, is a symbol of protection, the winged solar disc. There's also two cobras depicted there and on the edges there. So the cobra representing the divine feminine intuition, right? It's the number 3 again. It's a creative energy. So it's coming into that womb space, right? Like, what does the womb embody through the creative capacity that it has? And whatever comes up for you intuitively, take note of, but it's really illumination, it's warmth, right? Think of the sun, think of everything you feel from the sun, right? It's filling, it's light. So this is really creative power, the essence of creative power. Remember, we're on a solar powered planet. It gives life and creative life force to everything, the sun. So yeah, this is great success, right? Coming back to that energy of Heru. Heru is also symbolizing the sun as well. Sometimes you see Ra symbolized as a falcon as well. And that's why Heru is symbolized with the falcon mask. So this is about overcoming obstacles, right? Overcoming danger. So again, it's that same theme energetically. So this is more so what's closing out this cycle. So whatever that testing time, right? That the sowing of that new seed has to go into that darkness. We're reaching the full moon if you're watching this in real time. And that's going to be the peak illumination where like that clarity and the embodiment of this is very clear, right? Maybe at the beginning of the moon cycle, 2 strongs ago, if you're watching this in real time, as I said, right? Because the new moon and the full moon are 14 days apart, right? So you have the quarter cycles in between. So each 7-day cycle, we have, we move from the new moon to the quarter moon to the full moon to the third quarter moon, and then a new moon again, right? So again, it's also speaking to that cycle. Now, whatever you're going to move through, whatever you've been moving through, there's an energy here, creative force that's here to support you in creating from that pool of potential that you're sowing into. This card was in reverse. You can take note of whatever comes up for you intuitively. It is in the house of Tepeyaun, which is the primordial house. It is of the primordial family. Primordial energy is the energy that existed before existence. So it's really just beyond what we can even like try to like comprehend. Primordial energy is just is that ancient, before existence existed. Like, how do we even perceive that, right? So it's something you just have to connect to energetically. It's a very ethereal energy. It's the number 1, which also represents the beginning. But this card itself is new, which is the beginning of the beginning. But it's the beginning and the end, right? The end of chaos becomes the new expression, right? The order that comes through that. The creative, whatever the creative outcome of it is. Now, because it's in reverse, to me, I read it as an emphasis, or it could even be something that may be blocked, or something that you just really need to give attention to is the newness. Whenever I think of the energy of new, it's literally like the word new. But new is beyond new, because when we think new, we just think the thing just started. When we think new and you, we see and we recognize it's always been, right? And I love to quote Mama Octavia Butler, who is one of our ancestors for Tehuti Ma'at. She said, "There's nothing new under the sun, but there are new suns." And that's what you have the potential to birth in this new cycle. So whatever may be trying to tug on you, that you may be wanting to hold on to as we continue to move through these cycles, this year has so much potent shifting energy. By the time we roll around 2 revolutions from now, 2 years from now, it's going to look like a whole nother reality, right? Your life is completely going to change in some ways, very personally, but very much on a collective level. Like the world itself and dynamics on the planet are going to shift dramatically. But it's going to take place over the next few, I mean, it's been taking place, right? We've been in that transformation process. And remember, wherever you are right now, don't attach yourself to it. That's my point in saying that, right? So step into that potential of whatever seeds you've sown, and recognize that the attachments that you have are just, you need to allow them to be fertilizer, allow them to die, allow them to be compost, and allow them to bring nutrients. Let them be tender to the fire of what it is that you are electrifying and rising into in this next iteration and expression of who and what you are, where you are in this life cycle. So I want to thank you for being here for the reading, and I will see you next time. All right. If you want more information about Tehuti Ma'at, visit tehutimaat.org. I'll come back and put in the description link if you want to do a clarity call with me as well. If you're interested in doing transformation coaching, spiritual coaching, I do serve as a transformation guide and a spiritual coach. So if that's something you're interested in, you could schedule a clarity call, make sure it's a good fit. And I can share with you what the opportunities are in the next season when I do open up for new clients. And if you just want a reading, you can book that on Coins and Caris. And I will see you next time. All right. Power.